Hello there, Dr. Chip Abrahamson back again. And today, my topic is coronavirus disease 19, COVID 19, and vitamin D. Not so simple, or maybe it is. Today, I'm going to present for you two ways that people get their vitamin D to avoid problems. And I'll present the controversy about whether or not vitamin D is even needed. We'll go through some articles and a couple videos. And in the end, I hope that I stir things up enough that you'll think for yourself and look for yourself and decide what you want to do. Although I will, at the end, show you how I approach vitamin D in my life. Um, this started when I caught an email less than a week ago from Dr. Mercola. Uh, and I get his emails every week so I can just see what's new, what's going on. And this one caught my attention because it was about vitamin D and COVID. I had vitamin D deficiency. It was severe. I had a severe problem about 12 years ago. And that's when I really woke up about nutrition. I read 43 books on nutrition just that year. I just couldn't get enough. I wanted to know once I found out I was vitamin D deficient and I didn't need the root canal that the dentist recommended. And my pain went away after 2 years of suffering with just vitamin D, cod liver oil. I really wanted to know what was going on. That started my search in nutrition. And here I am 12 years later, and I know a lot about it because of all I've read, but also my personal experience, which I'll share with you as time goes on. So let's get started, and we'll look first at the screenshot from Dr. Mercola. And this is Dr. John Campbell. He's a PhD. He's got a very popular YouTube studio channel. I think this particular one has already close to 2 million views. He is a scientist and he goes through a science article little by little to um, show people what the article really is saying. For those that have difficulty because of lack of experience, maybe going through a science article to determine what it's saying. Uh, and it's been very helpful for apparently for a lot of people, almost 2 million views. But this particular video of his on vitamin D deficiency increases the spread of disease um, was the one that caught Dr. Mercola's attention. And uh, although you can't go to Dr. Mercola's website and find this page anymore, as he takes them down after 48 hours, if they're controversial, I did save his comments. And here they are, the story at a glance. Dr. Mercola says that vitamin D levels are strongly correlated with the severity of COVID-19. And the death rate and vitamin D level significantly decreased once your vitamin D levels got to 30. And if you got your vitamin D level above 50, you're very unlikely to die. Vitamin D receptors present in all the human immune system cells. Okay, so vitamin D, very important for our immune system. And vitamin D helps regulate the innate and adaptive immune systems. And we're going to go over this because it's very important to understand those two. And the best way to know, he says, how much vitamin D you need is to have your levels tested. Increase sensible sun exposure and or supplementation aiming for a level between 60 and 80 nanograms per milliliter. So That I think is controversial, and I'll explain why I think it is a little controversial. Uh, Mostly whether you really need levels or if levels work, um, or if you should get vitamin D levels and what they're really measuring. But the other um, five, the top five, I think are right on. So let's get started, and I'm going to start with just a short clip from John Campbell from his video. Uh, and this is the article that he reviewed. COVID-19 mortality risk correlates inversely with vitamin D3 status, and mortality rate close to zero could theoretically be achieved at 50 nanograms per milliliter. Um, Systematic review, meta-analysis. So this is a review of multiple science articles, which is why Dr. Mercola's first bullet point was about not just one article, but a review of articles. And this is from the journal Nutrients in 2021. I think it was November. And I think he did this video in November, the mid-November 2021. So just recently. So I'm going to start here at minute 30. And I'm going to look at my notes frequently as we go through this. And that'll tell me how to scroll through to the next portion of each video. I did want to start a little bit before I play the video, though, on the basics of vitamin D. Vitamin D3 is the most familiar. It used to be vitamin D2 from yeast, but now it's vitamin D3 that you get in as a supplement, and it's what everybody talks about. It comes from sheep's wool, from the lanolin from sheep's wool. That has to be processed with chemicals, chemical solvents. They irradiate the cholesterol that they get from the lanolin to make the vitamin D3 in a factory. So the active metabolite, which is calcitriol, is not vitamin D3. So vitamin D3 has to be turned into an active form of vitamin D. So that's why it doesn't work right away if you take D3. So calcitriol is available by prescription from a doctor. But as it's the active metabolite, it's a little more dangerous, perhaps for toxicity, overdosing, which is calcification in areas of your body, especially blood vessels that you don't want. But calcitriol is a more active ingredient than the vitamin D3. And vitamin D2, which comes from yeast, is not used that much not used very often because it just didn't get the absorption or get the blood levels of vitamin D that vitamin D3 does, which comes from animals. There was a book written years ago that David Wetzel, a farmer at greenpasture.org, brought down here to Tampa when he gave a talk, and it was a book about vitamin D science. And in the first paragraph, it said that over 1,000 vitamin D metabolites had been isolated, and they expected by the time they were finished isolating all the different vitamin Ds that they would get to 3,000. So I want you to know that the science is still ongoing for vitamin D, and there aren't just 3 vitamin Ds. There are probably 3,000. Certainly there are 1,000. And if you're going to take vitamin D by supplementation, you're going to get vitamin D3 or maybe calcitriol. And is that really enough? We're going to find out as I talk more that it's really not known. So I'm going to fast forward the video. But I had another note, and that was on the immune system. I mentioned before that I would cover the adaptive and the reactive, or the adaptive, which I call the reactive immune system, or the innate immune system, which is the immune system that we're born with. Just understand that if you have a strong immune system, your innate immune system, which is strengthened by what you eat, sunshine you get, the stress that you don't have, your innate immune system will take care of foreign uh, bodies like bacteria or viruses, and you won't even know it. The innate immune system, which includes nonspecific antibodies and so-called T cells, just takes care of business all day long without your knowing it. And if there is an overwhelming threat, or if your innate immune system isn't functioning well, say if you're vitamin D insufficient, then your adaptive immune system, which is inflammatory, will take over. And that's where inflammation comes from. And the inflammation is what causes disease. So if we can have a high functioning innate immune system and rarely, if ever, go to our adaptive, or what I call reactive immune system, then we won't get disease. Our body will just take care of things as they come along, and uh, we won't even be aware of it. We'll just have a good day. Um, I wanted to show um, one more thing about immune system and vitamin D. Um, let's see if this is it. Yes. Okay, so here is British Medical Journal 2017, and it's a systematic review of multiple randomized controlled trials. Looks like pretty good science. British Medical Journal is peer reviewed and one of the best, most respected medical journals. And here it says vitamin D supplementation reduced the risk of acute respiratory tract infection amongst all participants, which may be because it strengthens the innate immune system. So the adaptive immune system didn't have to clean up as much. Anyway, vitamin D supplementation seems to really be effective. And then I had another one from Science Daily, more recently, November 2021, in a study that was published in Nature and Immunology by Purdue University and the National Institutes of Health. Previous studies have shown that vitamin D's ability to reduce inflammation caused by T cells, inflamed cells in the lung, characteristic of the most severe and dangerous cases of COVID-19. Okay, so here's another one that suggests that vitamin D decreases inflammation and disease. And they found in the lung cells that the T cells could actually modulate when they were healthy from the innate immune system. They could actually modulate the response of the adaptive or reactive immune system. That is, the innate immune system actually can control. It can turn on the reactive or adaptive immune system, but these T cells from the innate immune system can also turn that off. They can turn off inflammation. So this innate part of our immune system is not just passively next to, but it controls the whole deal in our body. And lastly, from this article, vitamin D helps to speed up this transition from the pro-inflammatory to the anti-inflammatory phase. Okay, so vitamin D improves the innate immune system's ability. These innate immune system T cells improves their ability to shut down the inflammation. So vitamin D seems to be very important for the immune system. Okay, so that's kind of to introduce Dr. Campbell's video. And now I'm going to try and go to his video and I'm going to take you up to a minute 4:45 to minute 5:28. Let's see if I can do that over here.
That the bones were the bones had osteomalacia, but you can prevent rickets with just a relatively low level. 20 nanograms per mil is enough to prevent rickets. But what we're saying here is that to prevent other things, you need much higher levels. So rickets is protected first before we're protected from other things. These authors are saying it's preferable to have 40 to 60 nanograms per mil. That's 100 to 150 nanomoles per litre. And they're also saying that to get those kind of levels, you need to be taking 6 to 10,000 units of vitamin D per day.
Okay, did you catch that? To get those levels, you needed to be taking between 4 and 10,000 units of vitamin D a day. Okay, I'm gonna show you later that the RDA, recommended daily allowance from the government, is around 400 to 600. And he's saying, no, you need 10 times that. According to this article, if you want to get sufficient vitamin D3 levels from vitamin D3 pills. So I'm going to continue just a little bit more here. It looks like 9 seconds.
To get up to those kind of levels, because we're not making it from the sunshine. We're not out in the sunshine all day.
Okay, so there he gives one of the reasons, and they'll come up later in my talk, why this article suggests that people need to take that much by mouth, because they're not in the sunshine all day. I'm going to show you an article later, and I think you'll be astonished by how many thousands of units of vitamin D you can get from being in the sunshine. But I'll hold that as a teaser, and we'll move on here. So next, I'm going to show you that if you're going to take high doses of vitamin D, there's a risk, vitamin D toxicity. And maybe this is why the government decided to recommend maybe 400 instead of thousands of units. Because if you take too much vitamin D without associated vitamins and minerals, the vitamin D can cause calcification of tissues, especially arteries, blood vessels, which can cause a lot of damage in your body. So let's look at the next part of his video here. See if I can do it from here. Minute 34 to 35. Okay. All right, let's play this.
The suggested D3 levels are entirely safe to achieve by supplementation, according to the authors of this paper. Now, of course, this is for academic interest only. I'm not advising you what to do. The authors of this paper are not advising you what to do, but that's what they say. That's a direct quote. As long as enough vitamin K2 is taken, and that's probably about 200 micrograms per day. No, we'll look at the vitamin K2 in a minute, actually. I think the recommendations are a microgram per kilogram per day. But this is saying if you take a lot of vitamin D, which we need to take because we don't get it from the sun, then you probably need to increase that a bit. And the paper also mentions the importance of selenium, magnesium, zinc, vitamins A and E. You're very unlikely to be short of vitamins A and E, I would have thought, but selenium, magnesium, and zinc people can be short of, and all of these things are important. It should also be controlled for and supplemented where necessary to optimize the conditioning of a well-functioning immune system. So we need to optimize our immune system. Now, I am going to tell you how we can, in fact, I think I'll do that next. This can be proved or disproved quite easily. All we need to do is test.
All right, so let's pause it there. And you can see how complicated this is getting. If you think that you can take 4 to 10,000 units of vitamin D3 a day and not run into trouble, you could be very wrong. And is it as simple as taking vitamin K2, 1 microgram per kilogram daily, plus selenium, vitamin A, vitamin E, etc.? And what are the right doses of vitamin A? It can be toxic. So it's getting more complicated. And I hope that I'm able to show that to you here, that the science is of vitamin D is ongoing and at the present time incomplete. A little word about vitamin K2. We'll cover that later um, in more detail. But vitamin K2 was just discovered and labeled as vitamin K2, I don't know, maybe 10, at most 20 years ago. So, what's the next vitamin that they're going to discover, kind of thing. And what if that's not in pill form? So it's more complicated, vitamin D, than just taking the pills. All right, well, next, I wanted to go to another video. And this is from locals.com. Locals.com. Allison Morrow. She's a very successful independent journalist who left TV news and has over 100,000 subscribers on her YouTube channel. And she had a small farmer, Sally Fallon. She's the president of the Weston A. Price Society. Excuse me, Weston A. Price Foundation. And she hasn't been to a doctor for 37 years. She gets all her vitamins from food and doesn't get her blood levels measured. And again, has not been to a doctor for 37 years. And here's some of her story. I'm going to start with the first 40 seconds.
Don't go to doctors. So what causes, what was the first part of that question?
The first part was if there are no communicable morale here. Sally, you are the president
Okay, I'll get my headset on so I can hear it.
of the Weston A. Price Foundation. For people who are not familiar with that, could you please tell us what the Weston A. Price Foundation is and who was Weston A. Price?
Okay, so Weston A. Price was a dentist, and he wrote what we consider the classic book about nutrition, which is called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And he shows what happens over the generations when the diet is not adequate. So
Okay, so to introduce Sally Fallon, and I'll make the video bigger here. She's president of the Weston A. Price Society. Excuse me, Foundation. That's that again. And the Weston A. Price Foundation was started. And here's a book. I'm going to put it up for you here. I'll switch to the full screen so you can see it well. Here's his book. Weston A. Price. He's a dentist, and the faces are pictures of people who had perfect teeth. Many of them, despite not brushing their teeth, not flossing, on and on. And he found that nutrition was important in good dental health. And this is the book that I came across when I was trying to figure out how not to have a root canal 12 years ago. And this is the book that told me to take cod liver oil. And I thought, well, I'll try it. And 3 weeks later, after 2 years of suffering from pain, from what I found out was a stress fracture in the bone called the dentin underneath my tooth. After 2 years of suffering, I was starting to chew on that side after 3 weeks. And I went, I'm not a doctor. So I said, classically trained in medical school. I said, nah, it can't be. You can't. Cod liver oil couldn't cure that problem. And so I kind of ignored it. But then I noticed that after 6 weeks, I was chewing ice, and I've had no pain in that area since. I had a stress fracture. I found the case example in this book. I did what he told me to take, cod liver oil and high vitamin butter oil, and it took away my pain and solved one of my major problems. And that got me started reading on nutrition, and that's what this channel is going to be about going forward in the future. My experience, the science I've read, and how to make sense of it, and how to make life simple. Okay. So Weston A. Price, let me hold his book up again, discovered vitamin K2. Okay. He was the first guy to talk about it, only he called it Activator X. And he knew that there was something, and he isolated. He did a lot of studies on saliva, on people's mouths, and brought samples back and studied them in a laboratory. Over many years, he traveled the world, and he called it Activator X. And finally, it was isolated and found to be a vitamin K, and they called it vitamin K2. Something like 70 years later. Okay, so Activator X is vitamin K2, and Weston A. Price discovered it. He started his search when he found that there were a lot of cavities amongst his patients all of a sudden, and then he went to the American Dental Association, and they told him that they needed to fluoridate the water, and he was puzzled because they didn't have fluoridated water when he started this practice 20 years before, and there were no cavities then. Something must have changed, he thought. He was a dentist in Ohio, I believe. And that's how he started his search. Okay, so let's go to minute 1:15 here. See if I can do it here.
He was very interested.
Okay, I'm not sure where we
diet
are,
that
but looks
results in
pretty
perfect
good.
Dental health, and perfect overall health, and he was hearing about people with beautiful teeth in isolated communities. His nephew worked for the National Geographic, so he decided to do a series of trips around the world to isolated people to see if it was true that they had perfect teeth, and that means no cavities, and also perfect dentition. In other words, their faces were very wide, and there was plenty of room in the palate for all the teeth to come in straight.
Okay, so that's just another thing about Weston A. Price, how he looked at the perfect teeth on National Geographic, which everybody used to read when I was a kid. It was so fascinating to see that how other people lived in the world. And that's how he decided to start looking for the answer, because his patients had a bunch of cavities, and these people seemed to have perfect teeth. And they were places like the island of Skye in Scotland, and Switzerland, at the foot of the mountains, and in Africa, away from civilization. Okay, so next I'm going to play her statement about her health, about how long it's been since she's been to a doctor. Which is going to be minute 30, 40. Okay, it looks like I got it.
Doctors. So what causes, what was the first part of that question?
The first part was if there are no communicable diseases, then what causes
Causes
disease? But
illness.
you already sort of went into
Well,
that.
three things.
Yeah.
Poisons,
Hang on a second.
nutrient deficiencies.
Okay, so let me get back to where I wanted to be here. 3107, and I want to be at 3040.
If I was too out there, then yeah, I'm sorry. You'll have to sit that one out, Sally. Okay, I did get a question about if there are no communicable diseases, then what causes disease, and when was the last time you got sick or had to see a doctor?
Okay,
well, I've
here's
been
your
to a
answer.
doctor since my last child was born, so he's 37. So, I,
Okay, so I just wanted to show that she hasn't been to a doctor for 37 years. And how could she do that and not be taking vitamin D pills and getting her blood levels measured? Well, we're going to see more of her story. Next, we're going to go to minute 39:10. That should be close enough.
And do you just eat it straight, or do you put it
She's
in?
talking
No,
about butter. Talking about
I
butter.
put it on bread. I put it on sourdough bread, of course. I put on my
Okay.
vegetables. I had oatmeal this morning. I had about 3 or 4 tablespoons of butter on my oatmeal.
Okay, so the question that you missed because I started too late was I saw somewhere that you eat a half a stick of butter a day. And she said, at least a half stick of butter a day. All right, well, let's listen to a little more, and we'll talk about vitamin D and fats.
So, how does that help one's immune system or just
Yeah.
overall health? And let's talk generally, not just butter, but fats. Like, what are the best fats, and and are those lacking in the American diet right now and contributing to the problems that we're seeing with the health of the average American?
Yeah, absolutely. The worst thing, the thing that has caused the most disease, the most suffering in our children, the most cancer, the most learning problems is the industrial seed oils, also called vegetable oils. They're a slow poison over the generations. And the very first thing we say is not give up sugar. I know that's hard. Give up all these industrial seed oils. It means that you will not be eating processed foods, okay, because that's what they're made of. And then embrace the healthy traditional animal fats. That's butter, beef fat called tallow, lard. We keep a nice little can of bacon fat by the stove and cooking that a lot. So there you're not paying anything for that fat. It's just leftover. These are the stable, healthy fats, and they're healthy because they're stable and also because they contain very important vitamins. And everybody's talking about vitamin D. We measured 1,000 units of vitamin D in 1 tablespoon of pastured lard.
Mm.
There's the answer to your vitamin D problem. So, as far as butter is concerned, butter is the fat in nature for the growth and development of all mammals, including human mammals. There can't be anything wrong with it. And in fact, it is absolutely necessary in children's diets. We They need that butter. There's special fats in butter that you can't duplicate, that you can't imitate in margarine or spreads, that are very important for skin health, for reproductive health, for digestive health. And my goodness, we have so many digestive problems in our children today. I mean, the first thing is eat butter.
Okay, so I pause it there. She talks about butter. Wow. Vitamin D is fat soluble. So is vitamin K. You're going to see that industrial food, which she talked about, processed food, doesn't really have any butter in it. And if there is any butter in it, it's from confined animal feeding lots, not pastured cows. And so they're sick and they don't have any nutrition in them. But in general, industrial food at your grocery store doesn't have vitamin D. And there's nobody disputes that. Even John Campbell, you can only get vitamin D from fortification. Well, milk has in a cup or 100 international units or 200, in a glass of milk, and you're supposed to take 5,000 a day. I don't see how the industrial food can take care of us. But Sally Fallon here is saying that real food, which is a pasture, grass-fed cow that's healthy, that you can get enough vitamin D because vitamin D is fat soluble and it's in healthy, good fats. She does at least a half stick of butter a day. My wife and I have started eating oatmeal with butter after watching this video, and it's good. She says avoid vegetable oils because they cause disease. They're very inflammatory. And more telling, I think the most telling thing from this segment of the video, 1,000 international units of vitamin D plus I'm sure plenty of vitamin K, vitamin A, vitamin E, they're all fat soluble in her lard from her pigs that are pastured and allowed to go in and amongst the trees and root and sniff out what they want to eat instead of eating the same dose of GMO corn every day. So lard can be very, very healthy. Bacon fat can be very, very healthy, but it can't come from the store. That's the kicker. Okay. Last I wanted to show about that segment is her book, so that you know that she is somewhat of an expert. Nourishing Fats by Sally Fallon Morell, which summarizes and gives detail about, well, what fat should I eat and how do I stay healthy and why do I need to eat healthy fats, healthy animal fats. Okay, so let's go lastly to minute 45:10, and because she also does take cod liver oil, which Weston A. Price recommends, and which really helped me when I started. So I've been taking it for those 12 years every day. And let me see if I can fast forward to 45:10.
Do you supplement with cod liver oil and HVBO? I'm not sure what that stands for.
My vitamin butter oil, I do every day.
Okay. What is the most
Okay, let me see if I can take that back. I'm learning how to use my keyboard.
Okay, I have two, I think, last remaining questions. Well, actually, there was one quick question about, do you supplement with cod liver oil and HVBO? I'm not sure what that stands for.
My vitamin butter oil, I do every day.
Okay, so that's all I'm going to do from her video. If you want to learn more from her, you can go to Locals, LOCALS.com, which has the Allison Morrow community. And you'll find the video there. But I just wanted to show you that she's taking cod liver oil. And we're going to talk later about how much vitamin D is in fermented cod liver oil with high vitamin butter oil. So let's move on here. Okay, next topic. How do you know if you are vitamin D deficient? Do you have to get a level? And you know, what should your level be? Okay, so I want to go to, let's see here. See if I need to back up. Nope. Okay. Vitamin D. Okay, this is the National Institutes of Health vitamin D fact sheet for health professionals. And let's see. Oh, here, recommended daily allowance, estimated average requirement. Okay, two terms they use. Okay, so for me, they recommend between age 51 and 70, 600 international units a day. Okay, this is our National Institute of Health. And you can see, hopefully, why there's a controversy, because the government here is recommending 600. They even say on their websites that vitamin D has nothing to do with preventing death from COVID-19. And they recommend 600 versus that video we saw from John Campbell, where he said, no, this article recently shows that you need 4 to 10,000 units of vitamin D a day. So I'm trying to make the case that it's not totally sorted out yet about the pills and about vitamin D levels. And then they say down here, few foods naturally contain vitamin D, but fish liver oils are among the best sources, and salmon. And look at this, cod liver oil, 1,360 international units per serving, 1 tablespoon. But fermented cod liver oil has even more. I think it's around, I don't know, it's over 3,000, but we're going to look at that later. And then here's sockeye salmon, pretty high, rainbow trout. So if you want to get some good vitamin D3 by food, this is one way to do it. And it's not 5 to 10,000 units of vitamin D3, but that's vitamin D3, not the active metabolites. And this in food tends to have everything that you need in order to use the nutrient. Food is very complex and very difficult to break down. Okay, and they also say on this website that approximately 5 to 30 minutes of sun exposure midday, at least daily, or either daily or at least twice a week, and just your face, arms, hands, and legs. You can have a shirt on and be in shorts. Can give you a lot of vitamin D, and I have an article later that shows how much. It's quite a bit. And then the studies showed that 95% of people age 1 year and older are not taking anywhere near the vitamin D that they need. And I really like this next one. The U.S. Preventive Services Task Force found insufficient evidence to assess benefits and harms of screening for vitamin D deficiency in asymptomatic adults. Okay, so routine screening, if you're not sure and you don't have a chronic illness, routine screening, according to them, shows no benefit. So I'm not here to show you that you shouldn't have a vitamin D level taken. I'm just telling you it's controversial. Whether or not vitamin D levels and treating vitamin D levels, let's be honest, they're not treating you. They're treating your vitamin D levels when they take a level and tell you to take vitamin D. They're treating the blood test, not the patient. So the government says that screening is not helpful. And the article that John Campbell's reading says that it's absolutely necessary. So just know that it's controversial, and we'll move on. Let's see if I had. Oh, yes. Let's see. Okay, no, I covered it. So, how much do you have to take? Here's the levels. This is what I was looking for. If you're between 30 or between 12 and 20 nanogram per milliliter, this is the United States, generally considered inadequate for bone health. If you're over 20, considered adequate for overall health. But John Campbell says that you need to be over 50 or at least 50. And here they say from the government that if you're over 50, linked to potential adverse effects. And John Campbell says, well, as long as you take vitamin K2, you'll probably be fine. But hey, this is a new article. So are you sure? I don't think they are. And again, it's controversial between the government and, this scientist, John Campbell, and Dr. Mercola. It's controversial whether or not, screening is the way to go. Vitamin D levels. Okay. We did the recommended daily allowance. There was something that they said. I'll read it from here. It's after the RDAs. Okay, it's right here. Many other countries around the world and some professional societies have different guidelines for vitamin D. These differences are a result of an incomplete understanding of the biology and clinical implications of vitamin D. Okay, incomplete understanding, different purposes for the guidelines, and or using some guidelines of observational studies in addition to randomized clinical trials. Okay, so these are the United States guidelines, but they're admitting that professional societies and other countries have totally different guidelines. It's just not sorted out yet. All right, so I'm going to go back and just talk a little bit. I put a list of symptoms of vitamin D deficiency. I mean, if you have chronic illness, you definitely probably have problems with nutrient deficiency, vitamin D deficiency. But what about if you're, I don't know, you're working and you don't have a chronic illness, and you want to know, do I need vitamin D? I don't get sick very often. May I get the flu every once in a while? Oh, do I need to get tested? And so I've made a little list here. Number one benefit I noticed when I became vitamin D sufficient, once my tooth pain went away and I was taking cod liver oil every day, I didn't need caffeine. I wasn't tired in the afternoon. I used to have to, drink coffee with sugar around 2 o'clock just to stay awake, to keep seeing patients as an orthopedic surgeon in my office. So I no longer drink caffeine, and I don't get tired in the afternoon anymore. In fact, I'm doing this talk right now in the middle of the afternoon when a lot of people might be drowsy after lunch. Okay, Kelly Brogan, the MD, MIT graduate, wrote a book and Mind of Your Own, and she talks about how vitamin D is closely correlated with mood, and that people that are depressed often are vitamin D deficient. So tiredness, feeling depressed. If you get the flu, you're probably vitamin D deficient. Okay, if you get a cold every once in a while, maybe you got run down and you finally got some rest, and you got the rest you needed because you got a cold. But the flu is different. The flu is probably from vitamin D deficiency. I'm talking about the influenza virus. Okay, if you get broken bones, the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery says that trauma patients with broken bones, have an 80% chance of vitamin D deficiency, and the age group with the highest percentage was 18 to 25, I believe. So vitamin D deficiency is, I believe, rampant in the United States because people are indoors, either for their job or other reasons. They don't get sun. And second, and again, the government and John Campbell and I all agree on this. The processed foods, the industrial foods, even if they're fortified, don't give you enough vitamin D. And then lastly, we talked about chronic diseases, specifically autoimmune disease, inflammatory bowel syndrome, and heart disease are linked with vitamin D deficiency, according to a lot of people. All right, next. We've covered a lot, and we're on the downside here. But I am going to talk about gut health and go to the next article. Okay, gut health, your gut biome, probiotic bacteria, all that stuff. Here's some information. This is a connection between gut bacteria and vitamin D levels. This is from the University of California in San Diego in November 2020. 1 year ago, when the pandemic was at full stride, and what they noticed was the makeup of a person's gut microbiome is linked to their levels of active vitamin D. Active vitamin D. Okay, notice that word. Published in Nature Communications, and they were surprised to find that microbiome diversity, a healthy gut, was closely associated with active vitamin D, but not the precursor form. Okay, so what they found was that people had a healthy gut had plenty of active vitamin D, but if you measured their blood levels of vitamin D3, they might have been a little off. And so you could have a healthy gut and have plenty of vitamin D active metabolites and go to your doctor and get a vitamin D test, and your vitamin D test is low because they're only measuring vitamin D3, not the active metabolites. These people measured the active metabolites, but that's probably too expensive to do on everybody. As expected, men who lived in a sunny place, San Diego, California, got the most sun. They also had the most precursor form. They had the most vitamin D3, tons of it. But unexpectedly, they found no correlation between where men lived and their levels of active vitamin D. Okay, so you might be getting a lot of sun and have a lot of, high vitamin D3 levels, but if you don't have a healthy gut, then you don't necessarily have a lot of the active metabolite. In fact, the people in the northern climates who weren't getting a lot of sun had similar ranges of vitamin D3. Similar ranges of the vitamin D active metabolite. Just as healthy, even if their vitamin D3 levels were very different. Okay, so here's the summary, which I really liked. It seems it doesn't matter how much vitamin D you get through sunlight or supplementation. nor how much your body can store. It matters how well your body is able to metabolize that into the active form of vitamin D. Okay, this is very important to me. I can't actively, or how well your body is able to metabolize, the vitamin D3 into active vitamin D. Uh, that means that there's a difference. Some people can metabolize it well and some can't. And the gut microbiome, how healthy your gut is what determines that. So from reading this, I want to pay more attention to my gut health and less to taking vitamin D pills. Or even maybe less concerned about how much sun I get. I got to get some vitamin D3 for sure, but to get active metabolites, I don't have to push the vitamin D3 ingestion over the top if I have a healthy gut. And certainly in the United States, my experience and everything I've read, almost everybody has an unhealthy gut. Okay, high percentage. Okay, so here's their comment. We often find in medicine that more is not necessarily better. So in this case, maybe it's not how much vitamin D you supplement with, but how you encourage your body to use it. Okay, and let's talk a little bit more about that. Probiotic bacteria. I supplement daily. Not with a probiotic pill. I don't trust those. Up to 70% of probiotic pills don't grow anything when you try and culture them. I want fermented foods. For example, kefir, Kefir. I do about a cup a day. Sauerkraut juice I do every day, and sauerkraut some days. Sauerkraut has bifidobacteria, which kefir does not. And sauerkraut has about 1 trillion probiotic bacteria in a tablespoon, and kefir in a cup has about 500 billion, which is far, far, far more than pills and all active. But sauerkraut and sauerkraut juice probably win the day. But if you don't like sauerkraut, then kefir is pretty good too. Probiotic bacteria, they make vitamin K2. These probiotic bacteria actually make vitamins. So for example, sauerkraut compared to cabbage. Cabbage, when it's fermented into sauerkraut, the vitamin C levels increase by 200 times. These probiotic bacteria are taking care of us. And so we need to take care of our what we eat so that we'll have healthy bacteria in our gut so that they'll make the vitamins for us, including K2 and vitamin C. Okay, so let's go next to sources. Let's go to the next one here. Okay, I'm going to change it up. Okay, sources, pills. Let's talk about industrial medicine and industrial agriculture. And let's do that. Let's do it by first the story about Rick Scott, who I think is a senator, but used to be the governor of Florida. And when he got elected governor, they asked him how much or how he made all his money. And he was very honest and chuckled about it. I really liked his honesty. He said, well, first I sold donuts. And then when everybody got sick from the donuts, I sold them healthcare. Okay, that's industrialized food and industrialized medicine. And they're doing it to make money off of us. And it's because we're buying into the convenience of their food and the cheap price, but the cost is tremendous. And just look at the health in the United States, where it's gone in the past 10, 20 years, and the cost of healthcare. We're number 30 in infant mortality in the Western world, and number 30 in longevity, how long we live in the United States. but we spend 19%, almost 20% of our gross national product is spent on healthcare. And we only spend about 7% on food, which is inverse for countries that are at the top of that list. Closer to the top would be countries like Italy. I'm not against industrialized medicine. In fact, I think vitamin D pills do some good, better than nothing. But is it the best way to go? I hope I'm showing you that there are other possibilities. Okay, and just so you know, I did read that if you do take your vitamin D pills with food, you'll increase your vitamin D3 levels dramatically. Your gut will absorb better because it's absorbing everything else, I guess. So take your vitamin D3 pills with food, and your levels will go up by 50%, say from 30 to 45, just by taking your pills with food. Toxicity concern is something I wrote down here. Let's look at that. Down the bottom here, in summary, long-term supplementation with vitamin D3 and doses ranging from 5 to 50,000 units a day appears to be safe. Okay, so this was another article that suggested, no harm from taking the pills, that the toxicity, is not a problem. But again, the government disagrees. So it's still not quote unquote proven. Now let's go on to the source, another source of vitamin D other than pills. Let's go to sunshine. And right here, vitamin D3 is produced in the skin. The amounts equal to 25,000 international units a day by the action of UVB radiation. Okay. I hope you caught that. 25,000 units a day, international units a day. Okay. These guys are saying, in this article that John Campbell read, that you should take between 5 and 10,000, well, 4 and 10,000, between 4,000 and 10,000 units of vitamin D, by pill every day, and you can get 25,000 from the sun. Wow. Now, I want to tell you a story because I know you all are wearing hats to avoid the sun. And I know you've been told that you'll get skin cancer if you get too much sun, and you should avoid the sun. And that's only true if you're vitamin D deficient or nutritionally deficient. And how do I know that? Well, I'll just tell you my personal experience. I had my first skin cancer when I was around 33 years old, and they took it off, and it was a basal cell cancer. And the plastic surgeon said, "Boy, you're kind of young for this." Well, yeah, I've been inside getting no sun for 14 years while I've been studying to be a doctor. So maybe I got vitamin deficient, but I didn't know that. He just said, stay out of the sun because you're at high risk for skin cancers, and that I should use sunscreen. So I followed his lead, and I used a lot of sunscreen, and eventually it was taken off the market. I had to find out why, because it was my favorite sunscreen, and I found out that it was carcinogenic, that it caused cancer, so they took it off the market. So I was using a carcinogenic sunscreen at my plastic surgeon's recommendation. I wore a big hat all the time. And then I found out that I was vitamin D deficient some 20 years later, and I was taking cod liver oil, and I couldn't get my sunscreen anymore because it was carcinogenic, and I didn't like the other sunscreens because they were so oily. So I didn't use sunscreen anymore, and now I'm 12 years out. I get 2 hours of intense sunshine on my face playing soccer every Sunday, even in the summer. And I get a light, moderate sunburn, sometimes more than that in the beginning of the season in March. Um, and I have had no skin cancers in those 12 years, despite no sunscreen, no hats, and intense sun every Sunday. And so now I eat lunch outside. Um, and it's nice to have the break. Plus, the sunshine is very healthful. And I don't get skin cancers now that I've, become healthy from nutrition. Um, I wanted to tell you one more story. um, I was an intern. My friend Art Brownstein, he has a couple books out. Arthur Brownstein, MD. Art Brownstein, MD. He's in Hawaii. He's a preventive medicine doctor, has a master's in public health. We were making rounds on our pulmonary patients, and every month you rotate in the internship that we were in, first year out of medical school. And so we walked in to see this patient who had been on a ventilator for 9 months, and every month the intern changed, and every month they tried different things, different settings on the ventilator, different medicines to try and get him off the ventilator, and nothing worked. Now remember, this is around 1981. I don't know that they were measuring vitamin D levels back then. But Art, who was from California and was interested in preventive medicine, walked in, took a step back and looked at the guy and said, "I'm Dr. Brownstein. You really need some vitamin D." And he went over and he opened the blinds to the window. So the guy got sunshine all day, every day, at least on his face and arms, laying in bed on the ventilator. About 3.5 weeks later, toward the end of our rotation, with no changes in medication, no changes in his ventilator settings, we extubated him because his oxygen levels, CO2 levels were well enough that he no longer needed to be on a ventilator. That was just my introduction to what sunshine can do, how healthful it is. But I wanted to mention that story because it was a dramatic turn in my life's experience. Okay. Let's see. Fortified foods. So we did pills, we did sunshine for vitamin D. What about fortified foods? Everybody talks about milk, but again, it's only 200 international units in a glass. And if you want to get 4,000 units, what's that? About 20 glasses of milk a day. Yeah, good luck. That's probably why everybody's taking pills. Plus, fortified vitamin D milk is fortified because a lot of the vitamin D is destroyed by pasteurization, and there's little vitamin D to start with because they're just feeding these animals GMO corn and these CAFOs, CAFOs, confined animal feeding. They're not farms. And that's where most milk comes from. And it's very toxic. Okay, so pills, sunshine, fortified foods. What about real food? And what about cod liver oil? Okay, so here's foods that are high in vitamin D. We already talked about salmon and cod liver oil, but here they say the canned sockeye salmon, okay, 3 ounces, and there's 6 ounces in a can for $9. So for $4.50, you can get yourself almost 1,000 units of vitamin D in food, plus probably all the other vitamins that you need. It should be sockeye. If you cook it, you're still getting a bunch down here. But we eat sockeye salmon regularly. And if we don't have time to cook it, then here, I'll put up big screen. You can get it in the can. Just get the sockeye salmon if you want the most bang for your buck. And, you know, open up a can and eat half of it for lunch or something. Okay, let's go back here. And then the last source for vitamin D. This is something I copied from years ago, but this is from a website, but it's from testimony from a doctor, a family practice doctor in California. And this person said that high vitamin fermented cod liver oil sold as a food. It does not contain vitamin levels on the label. However, after numerous tests, the approximate values of A and D have been ascertained. And 390 international units per milliliter. Okay, thus 1 teaspoon has 9,500 vitamin A and 1950 vitamin D. Okay, 2,000 units of vitamin D in a teaspoon. This is the stuff that got me better. Fermented cod liver oil, high vitamin butter oil. Okay, it's a combination of butter oil. Butter is an oil when it's high vitamin, like in the spring and maybe the fall. When the grass is really nutritious, the cows make milk that's really high fat and really high nutrient, and it's an oil at room temperature, not a solid. And that stuff is mixed with cod liver oil by one great farmer named David Wetzel. And let's look what it did first, and I'll tell you a little more about him. So 1 teaspoon, 1950 international units of vitamin D. And then she says she had a patient whose serum level of vitamin D was only 12.6, and she gave her 2,800 units of vitamin D from this cod liver oil, high vitamin butter oil, which would be about 1.5 teaspoons. Okay, 1.5 teaspoons. That's all a day. And then in 3 months, this person's vitamin D3 level went to 82. Okay, so a teaspoon a day is probably going to get you to 50. And it would have taken 7,000 international units of pills to achieve this without all the benefits of the many other fat-soluble nutrients found in these oils, vitamin K2, vitamin A, etc. Okay, so what about this high vitamin butter oil, cod liver oil that I take every day? I take a teaspoon every day in the summer, and I take 2 teaspoons a day in the winter when I don't get the intense sun as much. And I don't supplement with pills. And I remember a few years ago, I forgot to take it for some time. It wasn't maybe it was a few days or a week. And I started to get that pain back in my teeth. And I went, I knew I was getting vitamin D deficient again. So I keep taking it every day. I have not had any levels tested. But according to this testimony from this doctor, if I had my levels tested, I probably would be plenty high enough. I'm taking an average of what this person took a day. And so I'm probably up around 80 in the 80s. And what about vitamin A toxicity? Vitamin A is necessary to prevent vitamin D toxicity, but too high and it gives liver toxicity. And it says here natural A in this cod liver oil and butter fat is safe up to 10 times the dose of synthetic vitamin A, which is refined and heated. So it's a food. It's never been shown to cause toxicity. When have you eaten a healthy food that you got toxic from? It just, doesn't happen, doesn't make sense. So David Wetzel, if you go to greenpasture.org, not Green Pastures with an S, not that, because that's a church in Georgia, but greenpasture.org, you'll see his website. He's a farmer. He had health problems like I did. He went looking for cod liver oil after reading Weston A. Price's book, Physical Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. and he couldn't find it. He visited all 7 cod liver oil plants in Norway. He visited the cod liver oil plant in Iceland, and he said, "But wait a second, you're heating this to like 400 degrees to get it refined, and isn't that destroying the vitamins?" And they said, "Yeah, but we just add the vitamin D back." So cod liver oil that's processed, refined, which is almost all of it that you can get, is unlikely to be of much benefit other than maybe the omega-3 fatty acids. So if you want to get high vitamin butter oil slash cod liver oil fermented, David Wetzel, after coming home from Norway and Iceland, decided he would make it on his own, and almost as if God intervened, a neighboring plant that they were about to make into a business and a plant for production burned down, and he bought it as for little or nothing, and now he makes fermented cod liver oil and high vitamin butter oil, and you can buy it by the jar and take a teaspoon a day and change your life, I think. Okay, let's try and end it up here, or finish it up. I was going to do, what I do. I will not eat or drink industrialized foods. I won't eat. I won't drink milk from the grocery store. In fact, I went to the grocery store with my smartphone when I started this, and I looked up every ingredient of the stuff that I was buying before in the grocery store, and I found from Environmental Work Group that a lot of that stuff was toxic for me, and that the foods in the grocery store just weren't helping me. Although I do get bone broth from Publix because it's grass-fed, and it's not that easy to get bone broth that's grass-fed, that's good. So I get very, very little of any food from the grocery store. I have several farmers here in Florida that I get my dairy from: sour cream, butter, kefir, and meats, because they have high vitamins. Like Sally Fallon said, her lard has in a tablespoon 1,000 units of vitamin D. And I eat a very high fat diet. That's how I get most of my vitamin D, but I also supplement with that high vitamin butter oil / cod liver oil from greenpasture.org. I also do keep my gut healthy by eating greens, vegetables, and kefir or sauerkraut juice, so that these healthy bacteria will make the vitamin K2 and other vitamins that like vitamin C that we need. I eat lunch outdoors. I get plenty of sunshine every Sunday playing soccer. And for a healthy gut, I wrote down here, avoid sugar and refined flour. Okay, avoid refined sugar and flour. Weston A. Price showed that pretty clearly when he went around the world, that those things were very harmful to our gut bacteria, to our health. Okay, so let's summarize it. It's been long, and thank you for being patient. I'm just getting started. This is only my second video. But this thing from Dr. Mercola, this email, really drew my attention, and I like the videos. They came across the same week. Both the sides. I hope that you can see that vitamin D pills and vitamin D levels are controversial, certainly between the government guidelines and the science. And I hope you can see that the science with vitamin D pills and vitamin D levels is incomplete. And I hope I've shown you that it is possible with nutritious food, nutrient dense food. And I'll put some links when I post this video where I get it and where you can go. Places like realmilk.com and eatwild.com, where I found nutritious food for the first time. I'll put those links on the with the video on locals.com. Join my community if you want to learn more. Thanks for watching the whole thing. And finally, consider that what the world has to offer is industrialized. It makes money for a few people at the destruction of most of us. And that what God has to offer us, which is real food, and we can tell if you visit a farm and visit a confined animal food lot, you'll know right away, probably when you're a mile away from the food lot, that it's not the right way to do things, and that the small farm with healthy soil will just put you at peace. You'll just know that that's the way. God's way is very peaceful, and His burden is light. And follow me on my channel, and I'll give you more and more ways to improve your health and stay healthy without having to take pills, see a doctor, or get blood tests. See you next time.